Updated presentation from the one I gave last year. So this is some stuff about me I told you earlier. So what is WebBrogue? Well, WebBrogue is a web application which allows Brogue to be played online. What is Brogue? Brogue is a really brilliant roguelike, open source roguelike by a guy called Brian Walker, who presented at a recent roguelike celebration over in the States. So I'll show you the platform in just a sec, but broadly it allows you to play Brogue in your web browser. Games are saved between sessions, which is my favorite feature, so I can play for a bit, go to work, play for a bit more, go home, play a bit, all without having to deal with any save games or anything. You've got full mouse control, high scores, in-game and global chat. You can observe other people's games, and you can watch replays. And we have 2 servers up and running. There's one in the EU, which I administrate, and one over in the US, which is run by a guy called Kip Rask, who is a guy who originally kicked this project off. And I talked about this last year when I just started contributing to a project, and we've now been online for a year with no major interruptions. So I thought I'd just give a summary of the platform and some things I've learned over the last year. So I could show you some screenshots, but I'll try and use technology better and actually show you the thing. Nope, fail. So if I can convince Windows to... I can, but it has a habit of flying off the other screen because it's higher res, or just crashing. But it's just my inability to use a mouse. Okay, so this is WebBrogue running. You can it lists people who are playing at the moment. I see Darren is. In fact, wow, this is almost going to be peak activity ever, I think. So what have we got? We've got games that you can observe, some chat, which you can abuse. You've got a list of recent games and people's scores and what happened to them. Sorry for my mouse skills here, or my touchpad skills. And every game is saved using the recording feature in Brogue, so you can go and watch anyone's games. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. So, for example, we can go and watch Darren play. So it's perhaps a little bit small on this res, but basically it's Brogue, and we can say something encouraging, like go on Darren. There we go. And you can obviously flip back to the lobby and go and observe another player. So it does all the kind of things you would hopefully expect now from an online version of a roguelike. Let me bring back the presentation. So a quick history of the project. So it was started by a guy called Kip Rask. He announced it on the Brogue forum back as it was then last year. He ran his original version for a month, then hosting was discontinued. I started contributing to a project in June and did quite a big rework of the server architecture in July to October. And then I launched my hosted version in October. It's been running ever since, and Kip resurrected his. Now there was some interest after we'd sort of built up a bit of a player base for the online version in March. And we've been adding new features ever since. So very briefly, how does it work? Well, basically, if you ignore the big complicated looking diagram, Brogue runs on a server. And Brogue's written in quite a clever way, such that all the graphical and user input native components are in a particular file. And there's a different one, let's say, for running on curses or running on other graphical platforms. And Kip wrote one which communicates with a server. So when you're playing Brogue, what you're actually doing is playing Brogue on my hosted computer, and every screen update is being sent through to your browser. So it's effectively like a streaming interface. We don't actually stream the screen itself. We stream a lot of updates that would look like, you know, X6, Y7, draw the @ sign. That's basically how it works. In slightly more detail, you've got a sort of one-page HTML JavaScript application. It communicates with the server, which is written in Node.js. You've got the static content. You've got a REST API, which is used for things like accessing high scores. And the actual game goes over this protocol called WebSockets, which is a sort of stateful TCP-alike protocol which runs over port 80 on the web. And every person who logs in basically gets one or two Brogue processes that run behind the scenes, sending screen updates. And you've got a database where user credentials, high scores, and chat logs are sent. As an observer, you can basically log in and watch somebody else's game. That simply means any update is sent to your computer as well as to a person who's playing. So last year, I spent some time before I set this up thinking about scaling limits. And I worked out you could probably run 10 concurrent users on a $5 a month plan, which from here from DigitalOcean. And in reality, as I say, we're about peak load at the moment because I'm giving this talk. So we typically have 0 to 2 games in progress at any time. So fortunately, scaling issues have not arisen. Here's some typical graphs. The CPU is not stressed. The fact that Brogue sleeps between every move when you're auto-exploring helps balance the load, which is good. Hosting's a bit stingy, only gives you ½ a gig of RAM, and lots of people will log on, start up a game, and then just disappear without closing it. So there's a lot of abandoned games hanging around on the server, which is kind of a problem. But I added some swap, and I put in a Reaper, which kills your game if you haven't touched it for 2 weeks. That seems to have solved that problem. And we're doing about 15 gigabytes a month, and we get a terabyte a month. So again, bandwidth turned out not to be a problem. So a few issues. The game runs in the DOM, so you're looking at divs, like a lot of divs for the 80 by 25 display. And some browsers like Microsoft Edge are painfully slow at manipulating the DOM, so the game seems very slow. So I recommend using Chrome, which is really fast, and Firefox is okay. I have done a sort of WebGL Canvas version as well, but it didn't perform that much better, so I stuck with the DOM one. Because you're playing a game on the hosted computers either in New York or in London, you get a bit of lag. I tried it from here, from Bulgaria, and it seemed to be completely fine. You do need a relatively fast laptop because it's, again, the DOM manipulation on the client is a little bit CPU intensive. I ran into some other issues with browsers' weird ideas of what Unicode symbols should look like. So, you know, in roguelikes, what's this character? Well, it's kind of a ring. It's Unicode 26AA. And in BrogueWeb, we use these Unicode characters to obviously represent entities in the game, apply a foreground and background color. And that was all working fine. This is medium white circle, as in current Chrome. And you probably can't see from display, but suddenly Chrome decided that medium white circle was best big, off-center, and gray. Actually, this is gray in the middle now, and you can't recolor it. So I ran into lots of these things where everything was working fine, and then a browser update would do crazy stuff. The torus symbol I was using for the like fungus, and then for some reason decided to make it purple, and you can't change the color. So I ended up going back to using O for rings, back to traditional stuff. So you've got to watch out for this. And on some mobile browsers, it had a graduated background for no good reason. Other things, as I say before, I added swap. Occasionally, if too many people played games, the server Linux would use to kill the server rather than killing a game, which wasn't very sensible. Bugs, amusing ones, observers could take control of games in some situations, which is quite good. I broke registration over Christmas for a few weeks without noticing, which was not very good. A real bug after 3 months, if you play enough games, there was a leak which killed the server. And there was actually some XSS vulnerabilities as well, where you could do naughty things with your username, which you can't do that anymore. So the source code lacks a few tests, but it's not been bad for a year. When I talked about this last year, I said I wanted to do cookies for credential stores. You don't log in each time. I do something equivalent with local storage now, global high scores, observers, chat, and doing a few things in the Brogue source code to mean that you can't, for example, save your game on the server and try and reload it on the server, which isn't how you're meant to use it. A few things I'd like to do in future with KIP, do some real-time elapsed and turn count stats on games. You can compete to see who can complete Brogue the fastest. When you're observing somebody, you only see their inventory when they turn it on, but it'd be nice to snoop their inventory all the time. It's quite good fun when you're looking at games which are in progress but not actively running at the moment to see what builds people are going for. I'd like to put in a tile mode, although I'd need to talk to the author of the Brogue tiles about using those. I'd like to share links to replays, so you could post on Reddit, I had this really good game, put a link and click that, go through directly to Brogue Web and watch the replay, and the better mobile browser support. So I'm going to make a bold claim that I probably have the most Brogue game records together in one place ever. I don't know if that's completely true, but I probably have the most diverse collection. So I just had a quick look to see what I could learn about Brogue from the 4,700 deaths we've had since we started hosting. Actually, I only looked at the EU stats because I don't have a login to the US server. So EU versus US. In WebBrogue EU, we have 3,900 games. This is about a week ago. 24 victories, which is a pretty lame 0.6% victory rate, and 51 Lumenstone stolen, whereas in the US, they don't play so much, but they're a lot better with a 4% victory rate. So I blame Google for this, but WebBrogue EU is the one you get to on Google, and you have to click through to WebBrogue US, so only people who know about it go there, and I think they're the better players. If anyone's played Brogue, this might look familiar. This is the number of deaths per level. So the stats get a bit rubbish after about level 20, because not many people get there, but you can really see that level 3 is very, very, very dangerous, and level 2 and level 4 also catch a lot of people out. And why is that? Well, you can look on the site itself, and you can get a breakdown of the most dangerous monsters per level, via the API as well. And you can see that, yeah, eels, which are the big killer on level 2, the number 3 killer on level 3, but you also have jackals, interestingly, they are fast, I think they catch a lot of people out, and spectral blades from goblin conjurers. Looking at the analysis a little bit more, here I've plotted a couple of early threats, like eels you can see dominating the stats for level 2. On the y-axis we've got the percentage of deaths, and on the x-axis you've got the level there. They're in blue. Pink jellies definitely have a sort of bell-shaped curve of deadliness around level 4. Vampire bats similarly around level 6. As you imagine, when monsters are first introduced, they are percentage-wise the most deadly. We do have some monsters coming back in later on, but I think that's just a statistical anomaly. Interestingly, eels turn out to be quite deadly throughout. There's a sort of peak of deadliness again in the mid-game. I don't know why that is. In the later game, we see different monsters taking over. Ogres here in red, which are a big threat in sort of level 7 to 9. Then we have wraiths, which are also deadly and fast in blue, and trolls in purple, taking over in the sort of teens. Phantoms making a strong showing for killing people, them being invisible and annoying, easy to miss in the later levels. And I only have a few people who've made it to level 26 and died, so I can't tell you too much about that other than dragons are hard. So that's a quick analysis based on the stats I got so far. One thing I'd really like to do is analyze the 4,000 recordings. The stats I've given you so far are only from data which the game sends to the server when it completes. So I could look into these recordings. I'd like to analyze the inventories and the allies of winning or deep games to get an idea of which builds people tend to use. So that might be something for the future. And there you go. That completes my rapid talk.
Yeah, I'm annoying everybody with my questions today. So you were talking about a Unicode problem. Just specifying your own font didn't fix it?
That's Kip's part of the server. So I think what we use at the moment is a Google font, which looks particularly attractive, but of course that's downloaded off Google each time. So that would explain why the changes happen.
Okay. And yeah, you were talking about abandoned game taking memory. And like maybe somebody wants to come back after 3 weeks and continue. I don't know. Why don't you just after like a few hours issue a save command and kill the process and just resume it next time?
The reason I don't do that is that the WebBrogue's save command is not very safe. It doesn't always work, in my experience, replaying, saving and reloading. And secondly, it's a little bit slow. So I like the fact that I can pop on and immediately start my game up again, whereas restoring a save game takes a little while.
But slow like that, I mean, if it's a few seconds, you can say your session was terminated and we are restarting and just please wait 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's another way of doing things. I don't have any memory pressure anymore, really. The Linux swapping is entirely sufficient, so I've not had an out-of-memory situation since I added the swap, but it could be potentially a good idea in future.
Hello. First of all, why didn't we play that version yesterday?
Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you with this. I was embarrassed to die on level 4, which, when I was playing with you yesterday from a pink jelly, whoops, which is probably about the right thing there, the #1 way of dying on level 4.
Yeah, everybody dies from heals, I guess. My question is more technical. Why didn't you try to use sprites so you can avoid all kind of problems with fonts and stuff like that? And your rendering speed will be times faster.
Yeah, I mean, again, that could be a reasonable idea. The nice thing about the way it's implemented at the moment is it scales really well. The fonts, the Unicode characters really look really good, whether you're in a small or big screen. So, as I say, I have ported the graphical code, which is written by Kip, to rot.js, which is a JavaScript roguelike library, which has a display which can use ASCII or tiles. It didn't find it much faster on Edge, which I was a bit disappointed about. But yes, so then I could use either a bitmap font or I could use the tiles from the tiled version of Brogue, and that would be something I'd like to offer as well in a future version.
That feature you just mentioned, the rot.js with a WebSocket backend. I haven't looked at rot.js for a few years, but I don't think that that's part of the kit as it is at the moment, is it? That's special work you've done?
Yeah, so right now we don't really use any roguelike specific libraries in here because what we're basically doing is, as I say, just mirroring the screen updates that you would have got on the server. So we use standard libraries like require.js and socket.io to do the WebSocket stuff. So the only bit I'd take out of rot.js would be the graphical rendering. I find that, as I say, I have tried to use other graphical libraries to do Canvas stuff or WebGL stuff, but I like rot.js because it's built for roguelikes and built for 2D array-based displays natively, so it's quite easy to use.
So for what it's worth, that combination where you've joined up rot.js with something that talks WebSockets on the back end, separate to your project, that's a high value component. And if you could open source that, I'd plug it into something right away.
Okay, well there is a really old abandoned branch on GitHub, this is all on GitHub, which does have that functionality, so I can point you in the direction of it later.
So, any more questions? I don't think so. No, there is one.
I have just one more. First, well, maybe two. The original author of Brogue, has he abandoned the project?
Has he abandoned the project? No, well, I don't know him, I've never spoken to him, but hanging around on Reddit, he does post, and he's certainly made noises as to the fact that there will be a 1.7.5. He hasn't abandoned it.
Because the version we're playing now is like a few years old or something.
It is, yeah. I mean, we're not quite in NetHack territory yet, but it's been a long time.
And another question is it possible to actually port the whole code to be working on the front end, like because Brogue is open source? And is it possible to make it work, everything in JavaScript on the front end, so I don't need to do this semi-virtualization that's happening?
Yeah, so it is. So Kip, as a side project, has ported the whole of Brogue to front-side, client-side JavaScript, but he found it quite slow because all the processing is being done on the UI thread, so it wasn't as responsive as he would like. The reason I like doing it on the server side is that I can basically guarantee that people can't cheat. I can keep the high scores, I can offer observer mode. All of those things are easiest to do if it's natively on the server. What Kip wanted to do was run basically a thick client on the client side, so have Brogue compiled into JavaScript, and then send me updates to the server, so the server could track progress and send it off. So a thick client rather than the thin client we've got at the moment, and that could work.
And a question to follow up on that. You mentioned rewriting it for the front end. Was it an actual rewrite in JavaScript or compile with mscript10 or something like that?
Yeah, he compiled it with mscript10.
Okay. Makes sense.
So that was it, I think. Okay, thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
And